Welcome back to Built to Ship, the podcast where we go behind the scenes with founders and product builders shipping real AI products into the world. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Jerry, the founder of Capybara AI, and really looking forward to learning more about what Capybara does and what you've done before this, what led you to the idea. So let's start there, Jerry. Thanks for being on.
Yeah, of course. First of all, thanks for the invitation. Happy to be here. I think so. Before Capybara AI, personally, I was a machine learning engineer at Meta. Sort of the foundational story of this startup thing is that at sort of daily times, it's really hard for retail investors to figure out how to build that investment decisions, and it likes sort of AI agents to support that kind of reasoning efforts. So initially, that's really the ideas. We built out this system, shared with a couple of friends who's also retail investors out there, and turns out it works pretty well. Now we have about users spanning from 100 countries globally, so we're excited.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, and going global from the beginning is an interesting challenge, I'm sure, right? How was that starting out like international?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a really interesting story. Like, we pretty much just rely on organic growth, and just once a day we got an email from folks from Australia, which we really never market anything from Australia, and it's like thousands of miles away from US, saying that they really love products, and we just keep this sort of organic growth and spontaneous conversations with our users, and it just keeps growing from there. Yeah.
Amazing. Tell me a bit more about like where AI plays a part in your product. Is it one
Absolutely.
agent? Are there multiple agents? Is it not agentic? Yeah, tell us about that.
Absolutely. So I think initially we start off when we start building things, this app. The agentic system wasn't really that viral, or it was like sort of an open space. There's a lot of ideas happening there. So initially, we really focused on building that visualizations built that's utilizing agents or utilizing large language models. For example, we would build something called like snowflake analysis, which is basically a quantitative effort to understand how a company performs. So those kind of information is going to be hard to retrieve utilizing traditional machine learning methods. But larger models, in that case, us as sort of tools, will help us to do it much faster. Now, growing from there, we realized that more and more sort of pressing demand from our users asking us to say, okay, we have these tools, we have this graphs, we have these visualizations, but how do we connect the dots together? So how do we ask really spontaneous questions like, okay, I want to understand this market. What are something I need to pay attention to, right? Those kind of free flow questions are the part where the agent really plays the best role, and that's how we sort of build a system on top of it. We build a multi-modal agent that sort of takes in the both textual and the visual. The audio part. Like you can talk to this agent, and then through sort of retrieving the RAG, obviously through textual datas, options, numerical datas, even like videos or image datas, we build that response on top of it. On that particular agent system, I think we really did a lot of innovations. Oh, sorry about that. We really did a lot of innovations. So yeah, happy to continue.
Awesome. Yeah. Tell me more about like your agent architecture. So
Yeah.
you mentioned like you have this agent. Some people have one sort of like parent agent with a bunch of other sub agents. What have you found works the best for you?
I think what we found works the best for us is have this like a large agent at the tops and do the intent reasonings, and then sort of plannings, control the state machines of each turns of actions. And then we have smaller agents that handles a specific set of tools that works really well for a particular use case. For example, we would one of our functionalities is called podcast. It's called podcast, AI podcast, like the one we're doing right now, but it's for generating. I'm really sorry about this. Let me turn this off.
It's all those AI SDRs calling us all day nowadays.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Give me a second. All right. Yes, happy to come back. So yeah, going off what I said, it's sort of one large agent that just really do the intent understanding, and then the small agents that tries to focus on specific set of tasks. Like for example, the podcast, which relies on generating like an AI podcast, like the one we're doing right now, that focus on particular events of one company. Now, that kind of specific task requires both the audio part of it and also the textual part of it. So that part we realize one agent controls, okay, what are we going to discuss? How do we pace the conversation, right? And what kind of data we need to retrieve? So those are small agents. And then those response from small agents will be feed into a larger agent. So that's the part, I think, how we structured it. And then I think the hardest part is really the retrieval systems. How do we build that really good retrieval procedures, right? Because agent, we really rely on the context informations. If the context is wrong, it's really, there's no way to start. And for us, we found that traditional, like, just retrieve, re-rankings and then feedback, that kind of model doesn't work well. So we built something called like a graph rag that really relies on on how do we fit the data in there. So I think that's a little technicals, but happy to pass it on if you want me to continue.
No, super cool. One thing that I wanted to ask was, it sounds like you have a pretty advanced and complex setup. You have multiple
Yeah,
agents, different modalities. How are you actually building each of these agents? Do you use a framework? Do you
that's a great question.
have your own orchestration you've built in-house to handle how they talk to each other?
Yeah, yeah. I think we initially try to really, we look at a lot of frameworks, like for example, LangChain, LangGraph, right? People talk about all the times, and then things like Crow AI does it, or there's a lot of frameworks. But I think eventually we just rely on MCP tools because I feel like for our use case, there's a really like a learning curve of deploying on different frameworks. And then we try like a LangGraph or LangChain, for example, and the technical sort of depths to learn those things and actually utilize it to your use cases sometimes can be challenging and also time consuming. And in startup culture, we want to move really fast, so we just build on
Totally.
our own. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And then you mentioned like tool calls is like a key part in MCP, which
Yeah.
is great. How do you actually measure both before you've shipped something and then in production? Like, is it calling the right tool?
Yeah.
Did the tool give back the right information?
Yeah.
How do you
Yeah.
approach that?
That's a great question, I think. So we also realize this sort of online offline attention drift. Sometimes we observe that offline it's calling the right patterns, gives cool tools, but actually on online sometimes it's wrong. The way we sort of do the evaluation, this color counting evaluation part, is that we rely on human annotators first to create sort of golden data sets that just like we paid up about, I think, a couple $1,000, asked them to create a dedicated curated data sets of what are some questions they want to ask, what are some expected tools calls, and then what are some responses that are expected. And building on that golden data annotations, we sort of calculate the retrieve, the recalls, precisions, everything, and every sort of rollouts of our new products. And then we combine this offline performances with online to sort of check, okay, does that sort of make sense? Are we sort of losing something here? So that's the way we do the evaluations to make sure they're correct. Yeah.
I really love that you called out this online offline, and just for the audience, because they might not be familiar, tell me if I'm getting this right, but like offline are the evaluations or the
Yeah.
testing you're doing before you've put it in front of users, and then
Exactly.
online is seeing what users actually do in the wild. Great. Sounds
Exactly.
like I got that right. Anything to add there?
Yeah, I think that's completely correct. Just we call it O2O attention drift, offline to online attention drift. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's pretty much like, what's the difference between what is working in offline versus in the real world? Is that kind of what you're getting at with that drift term?
Exactly, I think so. I think in terms of evaluations, when we do the offline evaluation, we see that it's going well, but it really boils down to the online metrics, right? Are the user complaining? Are we seeing things are working the right ways? Are they calling the right tool calls? Now, I think there's no perfect solution here. Like even though we can rely on automatically judge larger models to judge all the time, but like eventually if the budget allows, I would probably just create a really big golden data sets that just tests on everything, but unfortunately we're not in that kind of conditions. But so yeah.
What are some of the biggest things you've been surprised by in the difference between what was working in offline, but then like the users, do it differently? Is it like they're
Yeah.
asking crazy questions, or they talk in lots of shorter messages? Like, what are the most interesting insights you found in the difference?
Oh, absolutely. That's a great question, Tyler. I think in terms of the way that your user asks questions, it really comes in different angles. Like you can't really predict the thing they want to ask. I mean, you can sort of group their questions into smaller categories that they want to ask, but sometimes we get user asking questions like really edge cases, like even as a financial agent, user would ask, okay, what kind of food they want to grill tomorrow, or what's the like supermarket price and things like that, right? Really have to rule out those kind of responses. So I think large model does a great job, but we also rely on heuristic measures such as just regex patterns, understanding okay those questions are not financial related as well.
Mm.
So I would say
What
it's a
was the first
combination
thing
of
you
both.
said that did? I sorry, I missed that. What was the first thing you said that does really well?
I think large model does really well as a
Mm.
judge to sort of figure that out. But also we have to rely on heuristic measures such as regex, pattern recognitions,
Hmm.
things like that, to just roll out common stuff. But I think edge cases does sometimes come. In that case, we just have to pray that our agent can test the best.
And what's your perspective from the product side of like if a user asks about a recipe or like the meal tomorrow,
Yeah.
what would you like your agent to respond? Do you want it to say, "Hey, I don't do that," or do you want to like make your user happy and answer any question they want and eat up your tokens?
That's a great question. I think the way we want it, like what we're doing right now, is that we just tell the user, okay, we're a financial AI. We can't really help you with that. Friendly way, like, and let them know that okay, maybe there's other agents out there will Google it, but in a friendly way. Yeah.
Makes sense. Great. And then, it sounds like you have some pretty advanced eval system. You're talking about RAG metrics. You're talking about LLMs as a judge. Can you explain a little bit to the audience what an LLM as a judge is? And are you using a tool or framework for that? Or do you just do like a one-off call to OpenAI or Anthropic and, handle that judging yourself?
I think right now, so first of all, what is logical model as a judge is essentially it's an automatically judging system that rely on AI systems that are either fine-tuned or curated for specific data sets that targeted one specific task for that judging task. Now, for our use case, I think right now we just rely on OpenAI's like a small fine-tuned models on a golden data sets, like I mentioned, so they know exactly what they're expecting, right? Instead of free flow informations. But I think in terms of relying on frameworks, we're using any mature systems, we have to control costs. And I think that's one of the hardest part of a startup is that, there's a lot of great tools out there, but you have to sort of balance between the costs and using those tools, right?
Makes sense. Yeah, there's a trade-off with LMs. The judge, it's eating up tokens and
Yeah,
right, like so. Do
exactly.
you eval every single turn in a conversation? Do you sample them? Like, how do you approach that?
Great question. I think so. We don't eval every single question. The way we do it is that I think before any particular iterations of the agents, we do a bunch of evals during that iterations, and then once we see okay, it's sort of going in the stable directions, and we're not seeing people reporting okay, this agent's going crazy. That kind of feedback's too many often. Then we sort of just dial down a little bit, do it once a week or some sort. That's how we do it. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think this has been super informative, not only explaining kind of concepts like LM as a judge to the audience, but also like this process or this approach to,
Hmm.
hey, you maybe can't eval everything. It's expensive,
Exactly.
cost wise. It's also time consuming. That's great. Anything else you want to add on, your approach to evals, to like maybe CI/CD? Do you run these tests before you deploy? Those kind of things. Anything else to add?
Um, I think we run it before the deployment and we run once after deployment. Again, going back to that OTO sort of offline to online attention drift. But yeah, it's a pretty automatically procedure now. We just deploy the workflow and then run it on their own. Yeah.
Awesome. Super cool. Well, I
Yeah.
want to put your website up on the screen and give
Yeah.
everyone a chance to check out Capybara. What would you say is the best way for folks to get involved? Is it general, audience availability today? Like anyone can sign up and use it? Do they need to go through a
Yeah.
demo?
So they can sign up our previous beta version. It's right now in the iOS app stores, but we're also launching a new full end-to-end agent system like we're developed like the one I just mentioned about in a couple, I would say 2 weeks or so. So stay tuned on that. It's gonna
Nice.
be an end-to-end multimodal agent system, supports podcasts, agentic reasonings, and also just continue learning curves using language models. So everything really just in a bundle there. So very excited to share this new, actually. Yeah.
Amazing. Where's the best place for folks to follow along? Will that just be updated on your website when you launch, or?
Absolutely.
Cool.
We're going to update our website and also, the LinkedIn channels, and yeah, stay tuned.
Awesome. Great. Well, yeah, really appreciate you coming on and sharing like a kind of a blend of technical details about how you set up your agents, and also giving like an easy way to understand like these concepts. So really appreciate it, Jerry, and looking forward to following along with the launch, and hope everyone here also follows along as well.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tyler, again, for inviting me on this podcast. Very excited to share these things with everyone. Yeah.
Awesome. Have a good one.
Yeah. Bye. Take care.